Hi guys, how are you today? I noticed in my previous video the lighting was really poor. I tried to improve it today, but I don't know if it's worked or not, but I'll work on it. Right now I don't have much time. I'm trying to quickly push this video out before I shoot off. So today is another a continuation, like I promised that I'll share a few things within my dream journal, dreams and visions journal, or the big encounters that I've had with God that I've documented over the years. So today I want to cover something again that I keep referring back to, that is very near and dear to me, and that is something to do with my career. Now again, I'm rushing through this video, but this is just to encourage somebody that God can also still have an upper hand in your career. God can still direct you in your career path. God can still choose a career for you which probably suits his purpose for you, or that will work towards what he has called you to be in general. Sometimes your career may have nothing to do with your ministry. They may not even be linked at all. But me, I'm just glad that I feel like God had a very huge hand to play in mine. Now, a bit of a background story. Before I went back to university, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know what I wanted to study. But I did have somebody that had played a very big role in my life previously, in terms of the words that they had spoken to me. Now, this person was just a guy that I used to know. And he looked at me back in the day and used to say to me, Godly, you're still young. You've been messing about a lot, running around, chasing boys at the time. But one day, I want you to think about going back to school and getting your life sorted. So you need to go back to school. So when he said those things, I just remembered that, of all the people in this world, my mom always dreamed of me, being able to excel academically. She wanted the best for me. She tried to push me to pursue my education, but at the time, just before her death, I was just busy running around, chasing after boys, moving in with boys and disappearing. Nobody knows where I am, things like that. And just when I sobered up and decided, okay, I want to do something about my life, went back to college, everything happened so quick, and she ended up dying within the same year. So fast forward, I enrolled myself back in college, and I did, the 2 years. And after the 2 years, now it was time to make a selection for what I wanted to study at university. I was blank. Like, I had no idea. All I knew is that I needed to get back into education. I'd gone back. I had done the diploma that you do, the one here we call it the access course. I'd done the return to study. I'd done another diploma in health, but then it was called health studies. So I completed that diploma, and we had the graduation. And that diploma was supposed to be a degree, but something within me was like, no, you cannot continue on this route, because when I did my research, that was one of those degrees that are extremely broad, that you're not specializing in anything. It comes with a lot of promises, but then you can't narrow down one particular area where you can work. And we all know that employment-wise, it's not always a very good idea. You need something where you can specialize, especially this here in the UK. You're more employable in some career paths than the other. There's less competition in some. There's a lot of things that come into play. So for me, I finished. Everybody that I knew around me was a nurse. Everyone was like, "Oh, you have to be a nurse. You have to be a nurse." I was like, "Okay, I don't know. I don't feel like a nurse. I don't want to be a nurse, but because that's what everybody's saying, so I'll apply for nursing." So I put in my application to 4 different universities at a time. Was it 4 or 5? And I waited. And during that period, I had the Lord really touched my pastor at the time. He called me into his office and he spoke to me about my career, God, what I was studying at college. I told him, and I said to him, I opened up and I said to him, look, I've applied for nursing, but I don't feel like a nurse. Everybody's telling me this is what I need to do, but I don't feel it in my spirit. He looked at me and said, look, Godly, if I can go back to school at my age, this is the type of course I would do, because this is what my wife is doing. I would advise you between these two, which one do you feel like? I was like, okay, the second one you mentioned, that's exactly how I feel in my spirit. Because even going back in school, within my character, I was always that person that, advocates for other people. But back then I was doing it in a really bad way because I was bullying other, students. Like I was like one of those children that like refused to be bullied by anybody. And if there should be any bullying that was going on in school, I was the one going to be doing it. It wasn't nobody going to be doing it to me. So it's really bad. It can, have a lasting impact. It has left a lasting impact on some of the adults that I've met, that sometimes they'll see me and like, Godly, you bullied me in school. I'm like, what? I don't remember that. We've grown out of it with adults now, but they remind me of the things I used to say that really impacted their lives, that to this day they're still talking about it. So it's a really bad thing. But for me, advocating for others and, it seemed more like suiting into this other career path that I wanted to take. So long story short, I enrolled into university. And but before I even go to, I think at this point I had made the application, and I was about to start the course. Now, after that period when I'd applied and I didn't know, like I was like, okay, I feel like I've done the right thing, but I don't know exactly. So one day I go into church, the church I used to attend. Our pastor is very, very much into the prophetic. He used to do a lot of prophetic training for us. He believes so much in the ability to, teaching people the ability to hear God for yourself, because it's like, look, your life depends on it. A word from someone else, yes, it may guide you, but then if you don't know to hear God for yourself, moving on from that word that you are given, then you're gonna, keep being lost. So week after week, will put us through this program of teaching us how to hear the voice of God. And he will train us, and he will support us. He will teach us how to pray in other tongues and go quiet, sometimes for 45 minutes, sometimes for an hour. Sometimes you're just lying down flat on the floor, listening while someone else is playing the keyboard in the background. It's a crook. Everything you hear God says, speak to you in your spirit, write down or come out to the front and share it. So I've got this written down in my Dreams and Visions book. This vision, I had it in, as you can see here, 2015, I had this vision, and I wrote it down, what I had seen during, this time of prayer, and when I went quiet and seeked God. It says, my pastor asked us to pray in the area of our careers. He encouraged us to pray, hold hands with somebody. If they don't know how to hear God for themselves, pray for them and see what God is speaking into their lives about their career path, or what they are supposed to study, or what they are supposed to do, or if it's a business that they are supposed to start, things like that. So the Lord said to me, I was just writing down what the Lord was saying to me during that vision, that I was about to step out into a world of the most devastated lives with untold secrets, that He was sending me to work with the broken families. This is 2015, before I even, before anything went anywhere. So I saw, like within that vision, as we were praying and I was going quiet, I saw this vision that I saw a family sitting down at the dining table, looking so sad. And a little boy in the family was standing around in the corner of the room with a knife in his hand. And the Lord said to me that the little boy, as small as he was responsible for whatever mystery that I was, the knife that I saw had like kind of blood on it. And I had gone into that family, like, those murder mysteries, movies that sometimes we watch, like, okay, who's done something? Like, who's done this? Who's committed a crime here? It's as if I walked onto a crime scene. Everybody was on the dining table, devastated. And there was a little boy in the background, in the corner, holding this knife, which was bloody at the time. And the Lord said to me, as small as he was responsible for what had just happened in that family. And the whole room was covered in spiritual darkness. So, and the Lord was saying to me that, look, you're going to walk into situations that do not look like, that are not what they seem. Like, it may look, because in situations like this, probably the adults around may say, oh, I've done this to try and save the child. Or, for someone like me, I'd never grew up around this kind of situations where I'm expecting children to be so advanced in the area of evilness or damaged, that they've been so damaged because of the way they've raised or the things they've been exposed to the point where you meet children that kill. You see, and it's through my job that I've been exposed to things that I never ever knew existed, that go back to the things that the Lord had, spoken to me on that vision. So we prayed on that day, sealed everything. I was like, I don't know what he's talking about. Working with children, like how? I knew, like, obviously my job included working with children, but I had no desire whatsoever to work with children. I said it repeatedly. I will not work with children. I'm not working with children and families. I don't know what to do with children. I'm going to go and work with adults. So I repeatedly chose to work with adult services. I forgot about this vision. So when I graduated at uni, finished my degree, I started applying. And funny enough, because I was so determined to work with adults, all my placements during university, or in some countries they call them internships, they were all in adult services. None of them was in children's services. So I was like, yes, I'm going in the right direction. I'd forgotten all about this vision. Totally forgotten. This was years and years later. This was now, I think, around about 2018, when I was coming into the, to trying to work properly or figure out what was going on, 2018. So I started applying for jobs. I kept going for adult interviews. And every single time I went for the interview, I was turned down. So before I even went for the interviews, once I qualified, I was like, look, I've been so stressed. This job is extremely stressful. I need a break. So I went back to my previous job, which was support work with the vulnerable adults. I went back to that. And then every time I go to sleep, I will be plagued with dreams, like someone looking for me, and I'm hiding under the clients' beds. And someone, it was always a lady, like, I'm looking for, they will come to my workplace in the dream and say, I'm looking for Godly. She's hiding here, but she's not supposed to be here. Her time here is long gone. Tell her she's needed somewhere else. And then I'll wake up, I'll be like, oh my goodness, God, won't you let me rest? And anyway, long story short, I started applying for jobs. I went, I think, to about 3 different interviews. And each one of them, I did not get the position. So even on the placement where I was, there was so many chances of being taken on the job. The placement went really, really well. But something had happened, and they said that the reason they couldn't take me on to the placement was because I was on a placement where no student has ever been on that kind of placement, because it was within on a safeguarding team, where I only ended up on that team because my work-based supervisor was also a DOS assessor, those people that complete those assessments that put restrictions in place for people that are, should be, restrained and all that kind of stuff. So she was a DOS assessor. She was processing DOS. She was doing completing those assessments. And because she sat within the adult safeguarding team, I was, going, whatever she was doing, I was doing. I was going to those assessments. I was going to all those strategic meetings with all the different professionals that, the nurses, midwives, doctors, and those kind of meetings where they're trying to care for the people in the community. I was going to a serious case reviews where, if someone had died, and there was the cause of their death was questionable or unsatisfactory, or it wasn't like just a natural death, and they think it was unfair, they will call, here they will call a huge meeting where they'll sit at a particular board where all the top managers of each organization or each service, like the ambulance service, the midwifery service, children's services, everywhere, whoever was linked to that person, the mental health team, the manager, they all come together and make a decision. Everyone will come with the chronology of exactly what the services that they provided to that person up until from the time they were ever referred in up until the point of their death. And they're supposed to cast blame on somebody. They're supposed to see if everybody did everything that they could have done to save that person, to the point that if you were the allocated social worker, let's say, even though this is an adult, was there a point where if you thought you couldn't override their capacity, because if they have mental capacity to make their own decisions, and the decisions they're making are so bad that they could cost their life, and if they've not been able to be assessed mentally, because obviously, let's say they are they've got very poor mental health, but they also have a drinking problem. They're constantly drinking. That every time health want to complete a mental health assessment, they're under the influence, of alcohol, which would affect the ability to be assessed. So where you're supposed to go to take it to court before a judge and ask for them to use their, what do you call it? I've forgotten the word. There's a term they use where they basically take away your rights by law to exercise your mental capacity, where someone else will exercise it for you. Whether even if you have it, someone else will, the judge can make an order. It's a very difficult order to obtain, but they can make it to keep you alive. But anyway, all that aside, yeah, so I didn't get any of those jobs. I got totally frustrated. But one day I remember that dream as like, okay, many years ago, I remember that vision that the Lord had spoken to me, that this is the path He has chosen for me, is to work with children in this particular career. Maybe I need to go back and pursue that. I did not want to. So I went to my first interview. I passed with flying colors. Immediately they gave me the job. And when I went for that interview, they asked me, we had to be interviewed. You had to do 3 different interviews. You interviewed throughout the entire day. So the first one was with a child. I'd never worked with children. This child was interviewing me, telling me, if you were my worker, what would you do if I came to you with such and such an issue? I was just winging it. I was telling them this, that, and the other. And then to make, everything is even better, this child started talking about holidays, the different spices they like in food. And they talked about a topic that was, very close to my heart. We started, laughing, sharing where we've been on holidays, this, that, and the other. And he forgot the actual questions he was supposed to ask me. And then he looked at me at the end of the interview, said, look, I'm going to vote for you 100% because I think you'll be brilliant at this job. I think you'll make a good one. If I had to go back to choosing my own, worker, I would choose you. I was like, what? The child was extra nice to me. Like, I didn't see that coming. So because the children were accounting for 50% of the interview, if that child interviews you and think, no, you will not make a good candidate to work with children, it doesn't matter how well you've done in the rest of the interview, you don't get the job. So I had to go through that part of the interview. Then the next one was about, I came through, it was a group, not a group interview. It was, what do you call it? I was before different managers and different people that were interviewing me. They were throwing questions right, left, and center, asking me this, asking me that. Everything they asked me about children, like I knew little about children's services, but I could answer things in relation to what I'd learned at the university. I could tell you the legislation and all that kind of stuff. But what I said to them was that, look, I've never worked with children. I've not completed any placement in children's services. But they were like, okay, so should we ask you questions about adult services? I was like, yeah, bring it on. Everything you ask me about adult services, I guarantee I'll nail it. So they started asking me about the CARE Act, 2010. They were asking me about, adult assessments, how would I make a decision if, a safeguarding concern has been, raised about an adult, the things I'll look at, how I'll come to that conclusion. I just smashed everything. They were looking at each other like, how are you supposed to do? I knew things that I was not expected to know, but simply because my placement was just not a normal placement. It was on the safeguarding team where it's very fast paced and you're picking up a lot of skills and a lot of information that you wouldn't necessarily if you are, working in a different department of, adult services. So anyway, I got the job, and from the time I got that job and, started working with children, now I ask myself that because I wanted to work with adults so much, if someone could offer me an opportunity now and say, okay, Godly, I can still change my mind now and apply for adult jobs, because our degree covers both. You can decide to work in children's services or adult services. It's up to you. You qualify for all of them. It's up to you to make the decision. You're trained for both. So I said to myself, no, I still do not want to be, like now, looking back, like I'm not just because that God already chose that path for me. If someone offered me that opportunity now to go to become an adult social worker, I'll say no, thank you, thanks, but no thanks. I'll stick to working with children and families. It's opened my eyes to a lot of things. It's been brilliant. It's been very challenging. It's a very challenging job, as you may know. But I think I wouldn't swap it for anything. The love that I've developed for children is like I would catch a bullet for a baby, for a kid, for a child. Like I've come to think a certain way that I never, thought about children. I was running away from because I was like, I don't know what to do with that. I don't want to be, dealing with that. But now I'm so grateful to God. And even when at some point in my career, I decided to move away from permanent contractors. I didn't want to work for, local authorities permanently. I want to become an agency worker. I was very scared about taking that step. And after I handed in my resignation and I applied for a job and I was about to start my new job, I remember that day. I think that was the dream is in there. They're all in there written down. I had a dream around about 2020, just before the day before my starting my job, that I was traveling on a plane with somebody. And the entire time we were talking, it was a lady. It's as if we were friends, but I didn't know that, I couldn't turn around to look at her face. We were just chatting. She was escorting me to somewhere. And when we got off the plane, she stood somewhere and said, "Godly, this is where I've come with you to this point." But she reached in her bag and pulled out a huge bouquet of beautiful flowers and handed them to me and said, "These are for you in your new career, in your new step, in your new job, and in this next stage in your life. I wish you luck, and I want to reassure you that you're going to be okay. You've made the right decision." And I looked closely, and it was Sarah Jakes, Pastor Sarah Jakes, in the dream. And I was like, and then she turned around and walked off, and then I woke up. And when I woke up, I was like, oh my God, I've been so fearful of taking this step. I didn't know what to do. But for me, that reassured me that, look, God is with me. Because as you may all know, dreaming, of certain interactions or whatever, dreaming of, someone that is in the form of a pastor in the dream, or a president, or people in the particular places of power, it represents God himself, the presence of the Almighty God himself in most cases, according to my own experience as well, and what I've heard other people say. So I knew that God was with me. He was still with me, and he's still with me. It's been remarkable, some of the things we've accomplished in this job. Our stories, some of it will take to our grave, some will take to our children. It's like you can't have the same day twice. I mean, you see God backing you all the way in the courts of law, giving evidence. You see God cutting you off when you're almost about to be hanged. Like, it's crazy. But it pays to listen to the voice of God in each and every area of your life. Be it in the area of marriage, be area of career, that is backing you. Sometimes it may not be as clear that, God told me to the T that this is where I'm supposed to be, but you still have that leading within your spirit. It could be that by the time you entered that career, you didn't know how to hear God, but you have a conviction in your heart of where you're supposed to be, and he'll back you up. If he didn't want you in that career, you probably wouldn't be in it. You wouldn't have the protection to be in it. So I wanted to share that. And if you're out there and you're still looking for a career path to follow, I want to encourage you to seek God. Seek the face of God. Let him tell you. Let him choose for you. You see, there have been many times when I'm confused and I'm like, I'm trying to choose career over ministry or things that I say, no, Godly. He's spoken more since that time and told me, look, your career is part of your ministry, but ministry should be, taking the higher position, because that's what's going to kind of help you to navigate your career path. So anyway, I wanted to make this a quicker video, but probably it's going on for longer than I wanted to be. But hopefully you will take something from it and, continue to pray about your career path and seek guidance if you don't know where you're supposed to be or which direction to go. We still serve a God that guides us to this day. So thank you very much for watching and have a happy Sunday. Bye.